All right, so now we're trying to make this work. Doing Facebook and Instagram live at the same time since I know I have like different followers in different places. So let's see. I don't know. I debated for a long time about what to use because I wanted to make sure I was like looking at the screen, but I didn't want to have the camera in portrait mode. So I am using my computer. I don't know what the I don't know what the quality is like. I don't know what the connection is like. I've been on Instagram and the connection's been really bad. So I apologize if it's not great. But let's see. So I'm going to be answering questions both from here on Facebook and over on Instagram. So you can join me in either place and ask me questions. It's hard sometimes for me to get up to all the questions on Instagram because they come really fast. But let's see. You are joining me here on Facebook. That's so much fun. And people that I know. Yay! So right now I am trying to get ready for a concert tomorrow in Dallas or Richardson, Texas. We'll be playing the Korngold Violin Concerto with the New Life Symphony Orchestra, which you can find information about that on my Facebook page, tomorrow night, Thursday. And the day before a concert is actually always like super difficult for me because I tend to run into the problem of practicing too much the day before a concert. So I'm like trying to force myself to do less and not practice as much because I don't want to overdo it and then be super tired tomorrow. So that's one of the reasons that I'm doing this is because I'm like trying to distract myself from practicing, which sounds really weird. But yeah, let's see. So wait, I'm getting conflicting messages. Some people are saying Instagram's better and some people are saying Facebook's better. So I'm not sure. Okay, so let me see what's happening. I'm like looking at Instagram here on my phone for comments and stuff. Let's see. Am I going to live stream the concert tomorrow? I'm not sure. Probably not because I don't think I don't know if there's I don't think I've been able to connect to Wi-Fi there. But let's see. Okay, so people here are saying that Instagram is good and Facebook's lagging. So I don't know. I don't know what's better. Now Instagram is paused again. Man, let's see. Can I play Tchaikovsky in this Poison? No. Sorry. People are saying hello from all different places. It's so cool to see you guys, and like it's really neat that I can connect with you from all over the world. And some people are watching on both Facebook and Instagram. Okay. Oh man. Let's see. Persia, Brazil. So many different places. Lots of Brazil. You guys aren't really asking me questions. You're just saying hi from different places. Spain. My dog is under my chair. Yamako, do you want to come up here? He's like, no. My dad is watching the live stream and he's asking me what's the first piece I learned. Wouldn't you know that better than I do? I don't know. Twinkle Twinkle? I'm really not sure. Let's see. Can I play Paganini? I am not going to play Paganini for you right now. Honestly, Paganini, I have a lot of mixed feelings about his music, like the way it's written, and the fact that it's required for so many things for violin really bothers me. Because a lot of the things that he writes are obviously, as most of you know, super unnatural for the hand. And depending on your hand structure and the way you're built, Paganini can actually be really unhealthy for you to play. I think I've hurt myself multiple times practicing Paganini, not only because like first of all, it's just hard to play in general. It's awkward and uncomfortable and unnatural for the hand, like more so than playing violin is already. And then it's that hard, so you have to practice it more. and then you know, and then you have all of the problems that that comes with, because then you're practicing it more and then you hurt yourself from that. So, you know, I don't do a lot of Paganini. If I do practice it every so often, but just really slowly to like work on technique things. But it bothers me that Paganini is required for things like competitions and auditions, school auditions sometimes, and different things like that, because I'm like, that's just, it's not, in my opinion, it's not necessary. And in my opinion, there's so many other things that can tell, you know, you can tell that someone is very technically proficient without them playing Paganini. I don't think it's needed. But that's just my opinion. So let's see. What strings do you use? My most popular question I get like multiple times a day, every single day on the internet. I use all different strings. For the past year or two, I've been using a lot of I've been using mostly dominant strings for the bottom three strings, G, D, and A. And then I've been using the Westminster E string, heavy gauge 27.5, because it is a thicker string that I can feel better under my fingers. Like when my fingers are really calloused, it's sometimes hard to feel a really thin E string under your fingers. So I like that one because I can feel it, I like the tone of it, and it doesn't squeak. So I'm using that. But I've also used Ava Perazzi strings, I've used Vision strings, I've used Larson's, I've used all different sorts. The dominants are the most consistent, I think, and because they're like medium tension, I have the fewest number of problems with them, I guess. So, let's see, what else you guys asking me? I'm going to have 10 minutes of rehearsal before Zigeuner Bison, says my dad. Awesome. Especially since, no, the piece is like 8 minutes long, right? 2 minutes to rehearse, 8 minutes to play through. Sounds awesome. Okay, let's see. A lot of things you guys ask me, and I have this problem on Instagram a lot too, is you ask me very broad questions that I could sit here for literally hours to answer. So I tend to shy away from answering those because they take too long, and I don't want to just gloss over it. So like, people always ask me, how do you practice? Can you break down your practicing for me? Like, what does your practice routine look like? And I'm like, I could literally talk about this for like a week. So things like that are really hard for me to answer. Let's see. Technically the hardest piece I've played, that's hard to answer. I think there are a couple pieces that could be considered the hardest. Probably the three that come to mind for me, like besides talking about Paganini and stuff like that. Waxman, Carmen Fantasy, Mephisto Waltz by Liszt and arranged by Milstein for violin, and the Ginastera Pompeiana, #1. I remember I learned that piece last January, and I remember when I was working on it, I was like, this is the hardest piece I've ever played. I mean, it's very difficult in certain ways, and then not as difficult in other ways. But I just remember being like, holy crap, when I was learning that piece. Okay, for some reason, Facebook keeps wanting to let me know, like, you've gotten this many comments. That's so exciting. And I'm just like, okay, you're like interrupting the stream. Oh, sorry, I'm like missing the stuff on Instagram. Someone asked if the Devil's Trill Sonata is difficult. This is from Cardinal92. Parts of it are difficult and parts of it are not as bad. I will say that I think one of the hardest parts, I think, is the cadenza that I believe Chrysler wrote. I don't think it's original. So it's like the part near the end where it's just violin playing like literally a whole bunch of trills and stuff. Is probably one of the most difficult parts, but that's not original, so it depends on what you mean. But overall, the piece is tricky. that was loud. Especially if you're not super comfortable with trills, then it's going to be really hard. But it is a good piece to work on then if you're needing to work on trills. Let's see. Someone asks me here, will I teach for free? Generally, no. You know, look, if I had, you know, all the money and all the time in the world, I would love to teach everybody, anyone and everybody for free. But that's not practical for me and for most people. So yeah, as musicians, we need to make sure that we don't give away our craft and our skills and our time for free. However, a lot of people actually tell me frequently that I give away too much information for free on the internet. They're like, you give so much advice and teaching videos and all this stuff like on Instagram and all these places, and you really need to be charging for that. And, you know, I have mixed feelings on the situation. I want to be able to give as much as I can for free because that's what I love to do. Currently, I'm not, you know, I haven't started any series online that people would need to subscribe to. I've thought about it, but currently I don't have the time to put something like that together. But let's see. Someone says they love my ceiling. Oh, on Instagram you can see my ceiling, which is covered in a ton of those glow-in-the-dark stars. Okay, so many comments on Instagram. Let's see. Someone says, Blue-Eyed Violinist says they're working on a trill etude right now, and yes, I agree. Trills are very tricky. I actually do recommend spending a little time each day if possible working on them because they are so uncomfortable. Okay, some of these questions I do not understand. Do I play another instrument, says Kelly Wonks. I used to play piano. I played piano from age 6 until I took lessons until I went to college and then didn't play much after that. I still can, but I just don't practice, so I can't. Do I practice scales daily? Yes, I do practice scales daily. It is extremely important to practice scales daily, so I highly recommend that. I've talked about that a lot on Instagram, I think. Sarah Silver says, what would you tell or advise a new violin player? I have a hashtag on Instagram called Chloe's Beginner Tips, I think. And you can look at that. I have a bunch of posts in there where I talk about things that I recommend if you're a beginner. But basically, you know, the most important thing is just to have a lot of patience and don't try to rush anything, because one of the biggest problems with learning, especially, you know, an instrument that doesn't have frets or keys or buttons or things, is that you will learn incorrect muscle memory, especially for things like notes. You can still do that on fretted instruments. You can learn to play incorrectly, but I think with violin and, you know, violin, cello, and bass, it's even more of a problem. So don't rush trying to learn. I know like people get really competitive and they're like, oh, I want to like get through this book or these pieces as fast as I possibly can because that makes me look like really awesome. But if you learn stuff really quickly but don't do it well, you're actually doing a lot more harm than good. So just make sure you take your time and make sure you're working with a teacher. Is one of the things I always have to remind people. Like, if you want to do the best you possibly can, you really need a teacher. I know people say they teach themselves like online or from videos or things. That's really hard. You would have to be that much more patient if you were doing that, because essentially you're being your own teacher at something that you don't know. So that would be even harder. Sam says, I have tendonitis in my left arm, and when I play a lot of pieces that require a lot of vibrato, it hurts a lot. How do you fix this? Okay, so the problem with tendonitis is not a, I always like, I'm trying to figure out how to word this. Tendinitis is not in itself a diagnosis. Did I say in itself? In itself. Um, Tendinitis is a symptom of a larger problem. So if you're having pain from tendinitis, um, it can be from multiple different things, and the issue is you have to figure out what the one thing is and then solve that, and that's the only way that you're going to relieve the pain. Because I know a lot of people, a lot of doctors are like, oh, you have tendinitis, you need to like just take a break from playing, which in some cases may work. Like you'll stop playing for a while and like ice a lot and like take ibuprofen or something and the pain will subside, but then you go back into playing and it just comes back because the problem is still there. So the problem can either be a technique problem, like you're doing something incorrectly, either holding the instrument incorrectly, moving your fingers incorrectly, doing something, oh look, on Facebook it's not backwards, I don't think. Doing something like, positioning of the wrist incorrectly, like turning it this way or doing things like that. The slightest, deviance from correct positioning can actually cause a lot of tension and cause a lot of pain, and can cause tendinitis. So technique can be one thing, but another thing can be, and for me when I had tendinitis a few years ago, it was because of things being out of place structurally. So like my wrist was out of place, my elbow was out of place, and my shoulder was out of place. And like all three of those things combined were pulling the muscles and tendons in incorrectly, basically. And that the overuse and incorrect use, because everything was out of place, caused a ton of inflammation, which then caused tendinitis. So that was the issue for me, and I think that's an issue for a lot more people than they think. How do you fix that? You have to find a doctor, you have to find a chiropractor or a physical therapist, sports therapist, somebody that really knows the body super well. And I recommend a chiropractor because they're able to adjust you, but a chiropractor that specializes in something like sports medicine, sports therapy, physical therapy, because they're not just like, adjust something and then like, okay, bye, which I know a lot of chiropractors do because I've been to a lot of those. Not to hate on chiropractors, but I have experienced this a lot. So you need to find someone who's really willing to work with you, someone who specializes in myofascial release, using kinesio tape, different things like that. They'll really be able to help find the problem for you. You'll know if it's the right doctor because they will most likely say, I want you to bring your instrument and play something for me. Because those are the people who really know what they're talking about, because then they're able to look at you and watch you play and figure out what's wrong from there. If they don't ask to see what you're doing or positioning or anything when you're playing, then they probably are not going to be able to help your problem. So I hope that kind of answers your question. That's another question that like I could spend forever talking on about. But you have to find the root cause of the problem, and then you have to spend a lot of time practicing very slowly, and you have to do a lot of ice. So icing your arms, especially once you find where the issue is, then you ice that spot. Doing ice alternating with heat can also help, but ice brings down the inflammation. So inflammation is what causes the pain from tendinitis. So, I mean, itis is inflammation, which you probably know already. But let's see, I've got all sorts of things dinging all over the place. Let's see. Okay, how are you at fiddling? I wish I were better. Is that a good answer for you? Okay, you're having difficulty placing octaves in Brook number 1. So tips for correct octave placement. I feel like I have an Instagram video on this. I don't remember where, but if you look through, I'll talk about it now, but if you look through my hashtag Chloe's Violin Lessons on Instagram, I'm pretty sure there's 1 or 2 on octaves in there. But basically for octaves, I have to like move so you can see, you want to make sure that first of all, that the hand position is coming from 4 and back to 1 and not 1 reaching up to 4. Because see what that, even if you think like, oh, I don't do that, it will start to happen eventually, slightly. This will happen. So you want to think 4 and then reach back for 1, and then always making sure that your thumb isn't twisting in some weird place. So it should be like a little bit in front of your 1, and then making sure that your elbow is in the correct place, so not like turning this way or that way. And you see how that looks unnatural. So you want this to be straight, 4 and back, and then move up and down that way. That's like the best advice I can give for octaves that's like simple. And it's usually the thing that fixes things the most quickly. So, you know, if it's an issue beyond that, I would have to see you to be able to help. But let's see, so many comments, and I'm really like not seeing stuff on Instagram, sorry. Okay, there's a lot of stuff in languages I cannot read. I'm sorry. A lot of things I could answer, but they take a lot of time. I will do more of these in the future, so I'm not ignoring your questions if I don't get to them. I just like, I want to make sure that I don't spend too long on questions, that I get enough, you know, to different things. Are you able to replace your chin rest for a taller one? Yes, you are. I did that for a while, and it's usually not that, well, you don't have to replace it necessarily, but your luthier can build up the bottom part of your chin rest with cork or something else that will raise it higher. I would show you mine, but I don't want to like leave the screen for like, I don't know how long it's gonna take me to find it. But I had one that was actually pretty high for a while, and like I could put my head here and like play like this. I think it might have helped for a while, but ultimately I just really didn't like the feel of it, so I don't use it anymore. But that is something. Have you ever thought of making chin rest out of the fabric of your violin bags? I'm assuming you mean chin rest covers, which yes, I have thought about doing. Honestly, I've thought about making so many different things for my violin bag business, but I just do not have time. Like, I had so many ideas for so many different things, and it's like probably not going to happen unless I start outsourcing everything, because I really do enjoy making the bags myself. You know, I started making like violin blankets at one point, and I started making like string bags, string pouches, and all these different things, and I really love doing it, but I just like, I don't have time to do that and practice and travel. So probably is not going to happen, but it is something I thought about doing. Beethoven Violin Concerto, is it hard? The Beethoven Violin Concerto is extremely hard. Let me tell you, like, it's so deceptive because it does not seem hard on paper. You look at it and you're like, oh, these notes are fine. It's just like arpeggios and like scales. It's like easy, right? Except for two major things. Two things being, scales and arpeggios are, you know, you think, oh, that's not hard. But have you ever tried to play scales and arpeggios and like make them interesting? And like make them sound really good? Like maybe some of you have, but if you have, you know how hard it is to do that. So first of all, almost the whole piece is scales and arpeggios. So how are you going to make that sound fun to listen to? Which is like the first hard thing about the piece. And number two, the piece is in a key that's just like so, because of the scales and arpeggios, it's like you hear everything that's out of tune. I guess it's kind of the same thing. It's like scales and arpeggios, but from a technical standpoint and then from a musical standpoint. You hear every note that's out of tune, like every single one. It's so incredibly difficult to play. So first of all, you're like, how do I make this interesting? And then you know, you're also like, well, no, how do I play it in tune? and it's really long. And it starts out with octaves after you stand there for 3.5 minutes listening to the orchestra play their part. There are just so many things about that piece where I'm like, this is so hard. I performed it. I was playing it a bunch back in 2010 and 11, and every time I was just like, this piece is so hard. Um, and yeah, like, I love it to death. I think it's beautiful, but it's really difficult, and yeah, it doesn't look like it is. It's like, haha, I got you. Let's see. How hard would it be to learn vibrato, says Brittany Ramey. I think, did you also ask the question? Sorry, I'm not sure. Well, maybe you were asking two things. Okay, I'm not quite sure what you're asking here because I've seen a couple different comments from you, so I apologize. And the easiest thing I can say, you know, if you really don't have a teacher, because obviously I always recommend working with a teacher to learn things, I do have a vibrato video on YouTube that is an hour long. It's not really intended to teach you how to do vibrato, like if you're teaching yourself. I think I say in there, or at least I wrote it or something, saying like this is intended to be a supplement to lessons, but I think you can probably learn how to do it from there. I never want to tell people like I can teach you to do this without a teacher, because I don't think that's correct. But if you want to search up Chloe Trevor vibrato video on YouTube, you'll find it. It's an hour long and has a ton of advice on there, and hopefully that would be helpful for you. Someone just said my violin looks... Okay, well, it depends on what you mean by sick, because sick can have two different meanings, like it looks gross or it looks awesome, which is funny, right? That sick can mean those two different things. My violin is a Carlo Landolfi from 1771, made in Milan, Italy, and it is amazing and I love it, and I will not tell you how much it costs. Let's see. What kind of music do I listen to besides classical? You've never seen a person more dedicated to classical music than me. Oh, thank you, Branko. I'm sorry, I don't know how to say your name. Both of those were probably wrong. I'm sorry. I listen to a bunch of random things. Usually I find pieces, or since I'm calling them pieces here, I find music, like songs or different things that I like. Either I find them on TV or the radio or a movie or TV show or different things like that. And I get obsessed with those individual pieces. But I don't, it's funny because then I'll like listen to the rest of the album and I'm like, oh, I don't really like the other pieces. So I have very weird listening, I don't know what it is, skills, where I really just like particular things and I don't always like a whole genre of other types of music, although I do like techno music and I do like a lot of J-pop, and I used to listen to J-pop a lot more when I was younger. I had like a half a year where I used to listen to country music. I, for some reason, thought it would be cool to do that. It was more like me just trying to branch out than like because I really enjoyed it all that much. But I do love listening to bluegrass and, you know, Celtic music. I love Celtic music, fiddle music, like all these other things. I love all of that too. So hopefully that was a weird answer. I'm sorry. Have I played the Glazunov Concerto? I have not played the Glazunov Concerto, and it's funny, I was having a conversation with my mom about this piece not too long ago, and I was talking about how I was like, the Glazunov Concerto doesn't give me any kind of, it doesn't strike an emotion in me. I don't know why. Like most concertos, I'll listen to them and be like, or like something, it'll make me like feel some way pretty dramatically. But Glazunov, for some reason, and I will probably feel differently whenever I learn it and play it, but listening to it, I'm just like this, I feel neutral. I feel like nothing. I just feel indifferent when I listen to this piece, and that doesn't make me want to play it. Because I'm like, if I feel indifferent, then how would an audience feel if they're listening? I mean, I don't know. I know some people who love the piece, so maybe it's just me and I'm weird. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't played it. Um, okay, I know I missed some things here on Instagram. Um, biggest performance mishap. I have an amazing story, and I've talked about this on Instagram before. Um, I still like just I'm like it's just so cringeworthy when I think about this. I was like 15 or 16, and I was playing uh no, yeah, it was just the one piece. I was playing Introduction and Rondo Capriccioso at a recital at a music festival that I was at, and and I was the last one on the program, and these recitals would run really long. Like I think I was playing after 10:30 p.m. when I'd also been practicing all day, just like forever. And I think I don't know what happened. I walked on stage and I just like completely blanked, which has never happened to me before ever. I mean, I've been performing since I was like 4. Um, and I've never had this problem before, but I walked on stage, you know, tuned a little bit and got ready to play, and the piano started playing, and I just like was like, "What's the first note of the piece?" I was like, I don't know what the first note of the piece is. How does this go? It was like I knew it, but I didn't know where to put my hand. It was so weird, and I remember like trying to like sneakily like look over at the piano score to like see if I could see what it was, and I couldn't see it. It was too far away or too small, and oh my gosh. Like I still have no idea what happened in this situation. I just yeah, I completely fumbled around for the first 2 to 4 measures. Um because there's like what 2 bars of piano introduction, so I didn't have time to figure it out. I just completely did not know what I was playing for the first 2 to 3 or 4 bars. And then I got back on and played the rest of the piece fine. Because I knew the piece, I'd been playing it forever, and it wasn't new, it wasn't unfamiliar, it was just, I just completely blanked. Um, but I remember thinking, like, it's so weird, I can put myself back in that situation, like, on stage. And I remember what I was thinking the whole time. The rest of the piece, it's like 11 or 12 minutes long, just long for a showpiece. Um, and I remember just thinking, like, I should stop. I should restart and, like, make some kind of joke. I should stop, put my violin down, look at the audience, and be like, I bet you'd like to hear that piece with the right notes now, wouldn't you? I was just like, I'll play it off as a joke. I'll start over. It'll be fine. And I kept thinking that the whole piece, which, like, obviously I couldn't have done something like that past the first couple of lines. Not even past the first couple of measures, really. But for some reason, the whole piece, I just kept thinking, I should restart, I should restart, I should restart, I should restart. And I never did. And I finished. And honestly, probably no one really noticed. I mean, I'm sure they noticed in the moment, but I think they forgot because I played the rest of the piece fine. But I was just mortified, and I've obviously never forgotten about it. And I just like always make sure you know the first note of your piece. I mean, I did. I still don't know what happened, but ugh, that definitely is probably like the biggest performance mishap. Let's see. Have I ever played in Spain? Yes, I just played in Spain this past November, so like 6 months ago, 7. Um, Someone says that they see my videos on Instagram and love them. Thank you so much. I'm glad that you like them. My favorite Sarasate piece. That's hard to answer, honestly. I really love Introduction and Tarantella, just because it has so much history for me and my teacher and memories. It'll probably always be one of my favorites. But I also really like his Carmen Fantasy, though I've never played that one. I've only played the wax one. But I do need to play the the Sarasate version at some point. Let's see. Someone says, I think you're not normal. Awesome. Thank you so much. Um, how do you deal with students who may have a weird but effective perspective on a technique? Do you work with that technique via that perspective, or do you invoke your own? This is from Instagram. Okay, this question is interesting, and honestly, I would have to say it depends. If they have a weird technique um, that is causing tension or could cause some sort of issue with the fingers or hand or arm later on down the road, even though it seems like it's working fine now, I would say that you should try to encourage them to change it, and but only if you can explain why, and only if you can show them a way that's better and easier and more efficient. So um, let me say from my own experience, I am double jointed in, well, especially my pinkies, but also kind of my um, sorry, trying to put my phone down here. Also a little bit my ring fingers, and so on my bow hold, when I learned to play violin, a lot of times my hand ended up like doing things like this because I just like could not figure out how to not lock them, and I had teachers, particular teachers, I won't say who, but I had particular teachers that I actually asked them if they would help me fix it because I had people at competitions saying like, you really need to fix your bow hold. And I had other people that said like, your bowing is amazing. It doesn't look great, but it's amazing and it sounds great. Um, and so I knew that I could make what I was doing work, but I also knew that I was having pain at certain times. I remember one time when I was like 14, I performed the entire Sibelius concerto, and I remember my arm just killing me in like the whole last movement of the piece. Like I mean, it was a long time ago, and I vividly remember playing through it and just being like, I want to die because it hurt so bad. Um, and I had a teacher that I asked if they could help me fix it, and they were like, "You make it work, so it's fine." And I was like, what kind of response is that? That doesn't make sense to me. Like, I'm asking you for help. I actually want to I want to change something. And they were like, you make it work. It's good. Um, and later on, I had another teacher, and I brought it up to him, and he said something similar, but it was very different. Like he said, I noticed that you have this issue, but you do make it work. So I didn't want to mess with it unless you asked me for help. But I did ask him for help. He did show me how to fix it and change it, and then it's been a lot better ever since. I still obviously like have issues with the fingers like being prone to locking because of how my hand is built, but I've been able to change a lot of things and make them a lot better over the years. So that being said, if you have a student that if it's going to cause them problems at some point in life just from like repetitive playing, I would encourage you to help them see why it would be better to do it a different way. Um, if it's really, I can't think, I don't know what you're talking about specifically, and I can't think of something that would be unconventional that would not cause problems like that. Um, so I'm not sure what specifically you're talking about, but if it's really not causing them an issue, if there's no tension involved, if it seems like it's fine, then, and they make it work, I guess it's okay. It also depends on what level they're at. If they're at a, like a beginner intermediate level, they probably need to change it because it's probably going to cause them problems when they try to do more advanced things later on. If they're already in an advanced level and they're playing like Shostakovich concerto and stuff like that, and they're really making it work and it's not causing any sort of problems, then it's probably okay. So that's my answer on that. Let's see. Jimena says, is it okay to raise your right shoulder? Because in some passages that have a lot of consecutive down bows, and I finish the passage and see that my shoulder is almost up to my ear. It doesn't hurt or anything, but it still freaks me out. It is best to not raise your shoulder, but let me also say this, because, and this has to do with the left shoulder, but applies to both. You know, so people say like, you know, oh, one of the reasons you should definitely use a shoulder rest is because you have to like raise your shoulder to like get the violin up into the right positioning, especially for things like shifts, like you might feel like you have to raise it. Yes, you do have to raise your shoulder for certain things if you're not using a shoulder rest, but you can also put it down, which is different from when you use a shoulder rest, which actually encourages you to do this because you have something here. And then it actually encourages you to do that, and then you get stuck there. And you can't put it down because it's like always there in that spot, which is one of the reasons that I don't use a shoulder rest. I know some of you were asking me about that. I'll go into that on a different live stream because I've talked about it a lot in the past. But if you're raising your right shoulder doing some kind of technique, it's best if you aren't raising it a lot. But the important thing is if you raise it, that you're able to put it back down. So if it's getting stuck up here and you're doing this, then yeah, that's bad. But if you're raising it and it's consistently coming back down into a neutral position, that's okay. So let's see. Facebook's like, congratulations, this is your most liked live video yet. And I'm like, okay. I hope that answers your question about the shoulder thing. Basically, when you're playing violin, it's just important not to get stuck in any one position. The important thing is just like mobility and being able to always move into any position freely. Oh wow, this one is long. Okay, so Lorenzo says, I know it's a pretty vague question, but what advice would you give to someone who practices regularly but feels stuck as well? It feels like I'm not making any progress and I'm sick of making the same mistakes over and over. I've learned really fast. I started self-taught, but I've had lessons since. And now I'm at a music school. It feels as if it's slowing me down. Okay, so I've talked about this before. When you feel like you're making, when you feel like you're not making progress, generally that's actually a positive thing. I know that seems very backwards, but the fact that your ear can tell that something doesn't sound the way you want it to sound means that you are gaining a higher awareness of what you want your playing to sound like. Does that make sense? So it's kind of like with intonation. I mean, this could apply to intonation as well. Some beginners, you know, will consistently play out of tune and stuff doesn't get better because they can't hear that it's out of tune. But they also don't know that they're not getting better. They're just kind of like, oh, I play and I'm good. They're, you know, too inexperienced to understand what they're missing. So if you're sitting here feeling frustrated when you're practicing, it's not all the time, but it's usually a sign that you're at a plateau where you feel like nothing is happening, and then suddenly you're going to go up to a new level fairly soon. Usually like at that breaking point where you're just like tearing your hair out, just like, I can't stand this anymore, is the point where you'll suddenly find yourself at a higher level. You might not notice it yourself. Sometimes you will, not necessarily, but usually you'll get feedback from teachers or other people listening to you being like, oh my gosh, you have gotten so much better, or like this aspect of your playing is really improved, and you'll be like, are you serious? I thought I sucked. Like, it happens so many times. So I just want to encourage you, like, if you're feeling that way, try not to get too frustrated, because it actually means that you're making a lot of progress and a lot of things are changing up here, which this has to change for this to get better. Does that make sense? So like, if you aren't more aware in your brain and your ears, you can't change what's happening here. So this has to happen first, then the frustration sets in, and then you figure it out on the instrument, okay? So just keep working slowly. Maybe, ask teachers if they have any advice for different practicing methods or exercises you can do if you're just so frustrated out of your mind that you need to do something new. That can help too. So that's what I would suggest. Okay, so Kenneth is talking about keeping a consistent bow hold. He says he tends to lapse into a Russian grip, which prevents a lot of flexibility in the wrist because you tighten up a lot. Do you have a process of trying to get out of the situation? So if you're following me on Instagram, you'll actually see that the video that I posted today, like 6 hours ago, is actually on this exact thing. So I'm showing how, he's talking about this kind of versus this. And I studied with a Russian teacher. I don't remember that I ever learned a Russian bow hold, but that's kind of what I ended up with just because my fingers were double jointed so they block. The main things that you want to work on, which I talk about in that video in the post, are, I'll just say 2 things here. Make sure that your elbow is level so that this isn't breaking, and then make sure that your index finger is leaning into the stick. So not doing like this. Do you see the difference between this and that? So if you can take this knuckle and your index finger and put it down and rotate your hand here and keep your elbow enough so this is flat. This is essentially how I changed my bow hold, was those 2 things. And then I had to stand in front of a mirror for 6 hours a day playing open strings this way because it felt unnatural. And then making sure that you keep that positioning. Let's see, so if you play a down bow, okay, you can't see. Hi, Himiko. When you play up bow, you have to keep your hand here. Don't let this happen. So you keep it here and push with your arm. Back to the frog. So what happens to a lot of people is they'll be here and then they'll do this and end up at this point. Or they'll start correctly and then halfway through will drop their elbow and do that the rest of the way. Okay, so there's 2 or 3 things, however you want to think about it. Keep your elbow up and lean your index finger into the bow, into the stick this way. So basically pronation versus supination. So pronate your hand and make sure that you use your arm to play to the frog and not your wrist. So hopefully those things will help. Now Facebook is like, you've had 100 comments! This is so exciting for you! My gosh! It's like, okay, I understand they're trying to make it a game, so you keep doing it, right? Let's see. Abby says she's playing Introduction to Tarantella, and the other day she got frustrated with tuning the scales at the beginning. Actually, oh, I don't know if she means maybe she's talking about those, I'm not sure. What would you recommend? Okay, I'm not sure if you're talking about recommendations because your hand is small or just tuning in general. You could practice playing with a drone. So a metronome, put a metronome on and put, a tuner, a metronome or a tuner that, can play drone tones and, put whichever note you need on to play against. That can help. Or, let's see, it's 5:09, I should get going soon. If you're talking about your hand being small, and this is hard for me to get into because I don't have small hands. I have giant hands, which is good and bad at the same time. But you will just want to make sure, how do I show this? that you're bringing your hand around adequately and able to reach and not feeling cramped so that you're feeling like you should play like this, but feel like you can expand as much as possible. I'm not sure if that's the part you mean in the piece. I know like people with smaller hands tend to feel like they have to come around to here to reach that. You know, try to hold on as much as you can, but if you have to come around more, that's okay. I can't give you a ton of advice on that without seeing it myself, but I'm missing a lot of things on Instagram. I know Instagram one is probably going to end soon. Because, oh yeah, Instagram says it's ending in 1.5 minutes. I don't know, Instagram you can only live stream for an hour, but Facebook you can do 4. Oh, and the video ended. I didn't even get to see the questions. Oh, sad day. So, I wish it would let me go back and look through the questions. So I am sorry if you were on Instagram and asked me questions and I missed them. Write them here on Facebook because I did not see them because I tried to look and then it was like pause due to connection and then it ended. Sorry. Let's see. How was learning the Hinastera Pampiana? You must have not been here the whole live stream. I talked about that at the beginning. I was saying how that was like one of the hardest pieces I ever learned and how I was freaking out. So, is it paused? I don't know. I got a thing that said it paused for like a half a second, but then it went away. So hopefully it's okay. Okay, I'm gonna take one more question and then I'm gonna go because I need to eat dinner before I practice tonight. Why can I not scroll up in the comments? Excuse me, Facebook. All right, I really don't know why it's not letting me scroll up because I think I've answered all the questions that it's letting me see. And it shows me that there's more, but it won't let me look. Well, okay, I'll answer the only question that's here that I have not answered. So from Ariana, let me scroll. No, okay. So Ariana says, do you have any tips for being better at auditions and being more confident player in general? I wasn't going to answer this as my last question because this is another one that I could go on for forever. But let me see what I can say in a couple minutes. The best thing you can do for both of these things is to perform more. And I know that sounds like a kind of easy cop-out answer, but it really is the truth. Like, the more you're able to consistently get, not even on stage, but just in front of an audience, whether that's your family, your friends, your stuffed animals, live streaming, putting videos on the internet, like whatever you're doing, something that is putting yourself in front of an audience, be it real or virtual, doing that consistently is what's going to help your confidence the most. And if you have better confidence, then you're going to have a better time at auditions. Because one of the biggest problems with auditions is our own minds. Our own minds telling us, you're not good enough, you didn't practice enough, you're not going to be able to do this, you won't win, like just this constant barrage of negative thoughts. Even if you're not thinking them like very much in the forefront of your mind, if you're not consistently getting in front of an audience and knowing what it's like to get through a piece, get through a concert, get through, anything of that nature, you're not going to have the confidence to know that you can make it through this really difficult audition that you have. But if you have been doing that, you know you're an awesome performer, you know what it's like, that even if you mess up, you're still able to get through a concert and it's okay. And I promise, even if you mess up in a concert, you will be okay. No matter how bad the mistake is, the fact that you got on stage, played through the piece, and then got off stage is a triumph, no matter what happened in between, okay? So just doing that consistently is going to raise your confidence level. You'll be able to go into an audition being like, you know what, they may not like me, they may not want me for whatever reason, but I know that I am really good at what I do, and I will continue to do this no matter what the outcome is. That's what's going, to make auditions easier, because we put so much pressure on ourselves for auditions to feel like this is my last chance, or like this is it, or like if I don't get this then I'm a failure, if I don't get this then I'm, you know, I'm not good enough. The not good enough thing is just silly. Like there are so many reasons why you might not get into XYZ audition, and it's not always because of how you played. So take what you can control, which is, you know, depending on how long it is before an audition, you know, the amount of time you practice, the pieces you pick, and then make sure that you're playing regularly for people. Like I said, your friends, family, stuffed animals, Instagram, live streaming, Facebook, whatever, just do it a lot, and that's going to help you the most. So I hope that was helpful. Let's see. And Gene Moon wants me to help him with his erhu playing. I will not do that today, though I did play an erhu last summer. That was interesting. All right, so thank you guys for being here. I'm sorry if the connection is being strange. I know some people are commenting on it. This was fun. I think if everything went okay with this, I'm going to post this in a couple different places. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I will be back another time. So if you are not already, make sure you're following me on Instagram at ChloeTrevor_violin, and find me there on Instagram, follow me, and have fun. Have a great day, you guys. Keep practicing.